Jamie Jenn, former county prosecutor Patricia LaFrance, joins us live now to help break down this case. And Patricia, thanks for being here. This is a murder with no body.
Right.
How unusual is that in New Hampshire's history, and how complicating is that for the prosecution?
Yeah, I mean, it's very unusual. There's only been, I think, one other case that I can think of in recent years that did not have a body. It's difficult for the prosecution, obviously, because really one of the key witnesses would be the coroner or the medical examiner who would testify after conducting an autopsy, testify about the cause of death. So without that, you don't have a cause of death. All you have is the testimony from whatever witnesses there may be.
And so what sort of approach will they have to take here to sort of repair that giant piece of evidence that's missing?
Right, so they would need eyewitness testimony. Whoever was there, at this point, I believe it's Kayla Montgomery will be their chief witness about the cause of death. And I anticipate, she would be testifying about what Adam Montgomery allegedly did to Harmony to cause her death.
So Patricia, let's talk about Kayla Montgomery. She is currently in prison. Right. She's a convicted perjurer. So that's a wide open door for the defense to impeach this witness. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. And her convictions for perjury will definitely come in to attack her credibility, to impeach her. And that would be, I would assume, the defendant's, the defense main hammer that they're going to be using to attack her credibility, and particularly since she is the key witness to whatever Adam Montgomery allegedly did to Harmony.
Yeah, I mean, one could say this could quickly devolve into a he said, she said. I mean, Adam could pretend it was just the two of them, to hear Kayla tell it, alone in that car when it all happened.
Right, and that's where, the state, I would presume, has a lot of physical evidence to back up whatever Kayla will testify to. They may have physical evidence about, for instance, what happened to Harmony's body after her death. You have Kayla's testimony, but my understanding is there's a lot of physical evidence to support her testimony. So you want, it's called, the corroborating evidence to corroborate what Kayla is testifying to.
And Patricia, the state has a very long witness list.
Yep.
The defense has a very short witness list. What are the odds that Adam Montgomery would take the stand in his own defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare for a defendant in this circumstance, particularly since, I think the murder charge will be difficult to prove. The abusive corpse may be a little bit easier for the state to prove. So it would be really surprising if Adam Montgomery took the stand in his own defense, particularly if the defense feels that Kayla Montgomery did not, go over well with the jury.
Right. Final question here. So much media exposure to this case. The public was brought in right at the very beginning. It was a missing persons case. How hard and challenging is it going to be, or not, to find an impartial jury?
Right, so I mean, there's a series of voir dire questions that the judge will ask the jury. A lot of them were at the request of the defense. Have you heard about this case? Have you even looked for her, searched for her, contributed to her fund? Questions like that. And the key is not to find 12 jurors and the alternates who have never heard of this case, because it's unlikely that they're going to find that many people who have not heard of the case. What they want is an impartial jury. So they want somebody to come up and say, yes, I've heard of the case, I paid a little bit of attention to it, but I have formed no preconceptions about who is guilty. I'm ready to listen to the evidence and make the state prove its case.
And it's so hard to believe that, but it's true that by and large that system works. You can find people who've been exposed to a story who say they can still be impartial.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've had big cases before. If you think of the Pam Smart case way back in the early 90s, that one got national headlines. So, of course the O.J. Simpson trial. It is possible to seat a jury, even when there's been a lot of media about it.
Patricia LaFrance, thank you so much for joining us for analysis. We're going to be seeing more of you as this trial progresses, and we appreciate that.